Wow.
Oh, well, and here you have.
Technology is not mine, obviously.
Well, obviously.
Thanks a
course.
lot. So, 29 minutes. Longevity, everybody knows what that is. Are you often thinking about your own death? Maybe not, yeah, or how to improve your life. So, this is about longevity and the impact of AI. And I'm sure you know all this sentence. We can add days to life, but we cannot. But we can add life to days. And this is by Cecily Saunders, who was the founder of the hospice movement. And I personally would love to optimize that a bit, saying, okay, ideally I want to die when I want to die. So being limited by my biology and dying at 60 or 80 is not the optimal thing for myself in terms of a longevity movement. And so ideally I want to die when I want to die, and if that's 160, then should be it, right? And ideally, certainly we want to live happy and healthy, and this is what the talk is about. And if you're looking at longevity, and I'm not sure how many of you are thinking about longevity or reading things, hands up, yeah, a bit, okay. How many of you are eating supplements like metformin, rapamycin, these things? Okay, that's at least a half. So I'm not going to tell you anything new. One of the aspects is sleep, physical activity and nutrition, called SPAN. You can read that in all of the books about blue zones, etc. Second thing is supplements. This is how Ray Kurzweil became very famous, because he's eating, I think, 120 pills per day. I'm not sure whether this is the right way to approach it, but people can do what they want. The third thing is changing the body using genetics, for example, blood exchange. So Brian Johnson was changing blood with his son, etc. And feces transplant, which is what I'm not going to touch today. And finally, you certainly could think about LLMs taking up all of your knowledge, your personality, etc., and have a silicone copy of yourself. This is also not what I'm going to talk today. So number three. Number three, you probably know Aubrey de Grey, and he said the first 1,000-year-old is probably just 10 years younger than the first 150 years old. And for me, it's Halbzeit. Halbzeit, last year I turned 50, so if I'm lucky, I'm going to live another 50 years, and reaching this longevity escape velocity is the challenge to get within the next 49 years. So every medical improvement that we see should improve my lifespan for the next, let's say, decade, so that I can get the next medical improvement and get older and older and older. And this is the idea of escape velocity. And now we're going to look at different aspects in longevity research, how this can be achieved. And for me, it's 4 different systems that we need to tackle, and certainly, research is covering all sorts of different levels and aspects, but for me, it's these 4. The genes themselves, they define how your body is built. Then the microbiome, everything that you have in your guts and on your skin. We have the central nervous system, of course, like Alzheimer's, etc. And very important, the immune system. Which is kind of a post-processor, because everything that is going wrong in your body is tackled by the immune system. So you want to keep that alive. When you're looking at genes, it's very interesting. There is a lot of literature about shared genes that centenarians have, so people that get 100 years old. The interesting thing is that there is a lot of genes that specifically address the morphology of some organs, but others also have an impact on whether you get Alzheimer's or not. So ApoE, for example, is one of the genes that you can carry, and you may get Alzheimer's by a higher probability. And now we're generating this data, and we understand that 100-year people have genes that are better than ours. How do we transfer this knowledge to, for example, myself? That's going to be an interesting thing. Second thing is you have about 100 trillion little living animals in yourself, so you're not alone. You're a Wohngemeinschaft, yeah? And a third of them is neutral, a third of them is beneficial, and a third of them is competitive. And you're building up this up during your life, but the composition of these three is changing over the life. And around 80 years old, the competitive guys that want to use you or your body for their life, so to speak, are taking over, and this is reducing the effect of your immune system. So keeping your gut healthy, like Darm mit Charme, which is one of the books, yeah, is absolutely important. And we need to understand how to work with your gut. It's not just about gut feelings, And certainly, I used to be a neuroscientist, so I looked a lot into the brain. My dad passed away with Alzheimer's. I was with him over 7 years, so I know how the brain is decomposing. The brain is actually really, for everybody of you, even if you stay healthy, is shrinking over the years, so it's getting smaller, and you're losing connections. And the energy consumption, how the brain cells are producing energy, is also going low. And the problem is that many of these diseases that we have, like Alzheimer's, are partially interpreted as also an immune system thing, like your brain has inflammation and you want to fight that. So the immune system seems to be one of the four most important things, and this is from a study that tries to tackle all of these compositions, how aging is actually happening. And there is one sentence, I think a European guy invented that, is inflammaging. So the more inflammation you have in your body, the easier you get older, and your organs will get older, and so on. So one of the super important things is to keep your immune system trained and well established. And that's, I think, one of the most important aspects. And the immune system, of course, like the microbiome, is a super complex system. It's not like an organ like the liver or something like that, but it's really hard to understand. And when we're looking at how are we tackling this, then the standard problem that we have in the pharma industry, for example, is that it's super expensive. So it costs you, even in the best case, about 400 to 500 million to develop a new drug. But if you factor in all of the fails that you have during that journey, then you're easily around 2.5 billion per medicine. And it's taking you about 10 to 15 years. I don't have time for that. And this is all without AI, right? So the clinical trials are also broken on a different level, like you need to find the right kind of patients that fit basically to the pharmacological mechanisms that you're looking for. And the second thing is, since everybody is different, you will have subgroups. So you may not see the right kind of effects basically, even if you're doing these studies, clinical studies. And this means that only less than 11% even reach phase 1. And you have, as we've shown here, you have 3 phases that you need to survive. So it's super expensive, because even if you just add the lower parts here, it's super expensive to do these experiments. So we as an AI community would say, okay, LLM, AI, let's go. Yeah, why are you still cooking molecules? Ridiculous. And I would guess that everybody of you knows the AI scientist. It's a publication and a GitHub repo that can generate ideas, experiment them in silico, and then write a publication on a human level. This is the second version that was published just recently, like 3 weeks ago or something. And you could ask yourself, hey, why are we not using this to develop new drugs? And the problem is that these experiments and the update plan is not happening in biology because you cannot still entirely simulate biology. And so what I would love to do is in silico experiments, longevity experiments in the computer. If you're looking at how many simulations we have in the body or for the body, the problem is we need a human that is fully described on various levels, like the genes and the molecules and the organs and the immune system and so on. Plus, ideally, if you have that model of a general human, so like we are having a model of a general genome, then you can use the parameters of a single patient and say, this is your genome and this is your biological data, and we are doing a parameterization of this model so that we reflect you and develop a medication exactly for you. And now let's look at how many digital twins we have. And the digital twin revolution, kind of, it's not really, just started in 2015, and actually we have 16 digital twins as of today. So it's not too many. And if I were Dell or HP or NVIDIA, then I would definitely invest in this area. And there is, for example, the heart model, I think was developed by Siemens, and it takes about 12 hours computation time to let the heart beat once. But it's a full like cell level simulation of a human heart. So it's super interesting, lots of literature. If you get the paper, you will have links to the immune system and what effects they can do with the immune system, microbiome and so on. So it's really simulations that we can use. Second thing is for getting the parameters to actually use your simulation with your genes. There is a second good news. So I did some research on how many sequences we did and what the cost is. And the cost is going dramatically down for sequencing your own genome. It's about $400. With these $400, you get 150 reports about all of your genetic predispositions of all sorts of diseases that you could get. It's quite interesting, I think. Second thing is we need fast data. So on the right-hand side, you see a startup that we just reviewed in an angel club in Switzerland, Brainscape. This is an EEG. It's recording your brain activity, but you can implant that below your skin. So it's a full-time 24/7 EEG that is walking with you, and you're grabbing the brain data 24/7. Super interesting. And then there is the Dexcom Aura fusion that we were just talking about yesterday, which means your ring and your glucose monitor will talk to each other and pool the data. Second thing is, I think also super interesting, flow bio, but there is a couple of more different devices that can record your sweat. Your sweat is basically showing all of your metabolites from your body. So everything that you do is kind of detectable in the sweat. And there is a sensor that you can buy today to generate that data. And so prevention works. There is a lot of studies that show that, for example, recording the ECG in a clinic, you can save a lot of lives, not just by looking at the data, but really having an AI that is looking at the recorded data live and is basically alerting the nurses to save lives, which is, I think, one of the most important things. So vibe coding, I guess that everybody tried it out in the last couple of weeks, yeah. But when we are stepping back one step and saying, okay, what is vibe coding in an abstract way? We have three things. One is the soft part, which is my ideas or user requirements or ideas, etc. Then you have kind of the moderator, which is Bolt or Cursor or Replit, etc., which is the software that is generating software for you. But these softwares can also record screens, understand error messages, etc. And then you have the rigid part, which is how Python is spelled syntactically, what is a definition of an API, what is a structure of database. This is rigid. So the LLM has to work with the generated code against rigid data. And that's, I think, a very important part, which will improve over time. What does that mean? I think we need vibe coding for drugs. So we need the same for drug development. I want to have interactive drug development in the future. This would be kind of the speed of my thinking. I want to talk to a machine and explore ideas interactively instead of waiting 15 years. So how would we get there? Hypotheses are generated by molecules that you have in mind, or pathways, or mechanical systems that you have on cell level. You certainly have LLMs already that are thinking in proteins, for example. You can do in silico testing. This is nothing new. I didn't invent that, but I think that in this setup it would be super interactive. And certainly you have models that you developed about organs, etc. And this rigid part would be, simulated organs, systems biology, cellular twins, and so on. And again, there is a company that we all know, Google or DeepMind, and they won the Nobel Prize, and that's correct to do so, because on the left-hand side, you have the structured data already. In the middle, you have the LLMs or the transformers, and on the right-hand side, again, you have structured data, which is verifying the molecular structure of the proteins that they invented. So there is the mechanic in place. However, the proteome is just one level. The next level that we need to see is the systems biology level, which means, if you're eating rapamycin, etc., this is basically one part of the system in your body that works with the mTOR, mammalian target of rapamycin. So this is actually how it works. And we need to bring that into the computer in a simulation on a cell level so that we really can simulate interactions with molecules. And I also did some research on AI drug developers, because you would say this is the next thing that we need to do naturally. And then the screen got blank, and I didn't know what I talk about. But you see here we have about 40 startups, which is not entirely an explosion from my perspective. And 8 billion in funding is also not too much capital allocated. But you also see they started in 2010, and we had the LLM revolution let's say 3 years ago or something. So I would expect that this number is really going up in the next couple of years. And this is why I say that this revolution is just ahead of us. It's very, very close from my perspective. Okay, so for everybody who wants to try out things, I also collected a couple of large language models, open source. Biomistral, for example, is a 7 billion parameter model that runs on my computer at home. But there is also Meditron, I think that's made by NVIDIA, and a couple of others that are also trained on different aspects of healthcare. And then, who is using MCPs, Model Context Protocol servers? 2, okay, 7, 8. It's super interesting. They were introduced last November, and we have 5 months in 2025, and these are the MCPs already in healthcare. I think that's tremendous, because this is exactly the structured data that you want to have to interact with the LLMs. And there is a lot of things going on. I just took the protein structure as well as clinical guidance for decision support that is basically plugging into healthcare LLMs. Super inspiring from my perspective. So towards personal medicine, from my perspective, AI has revolutionized already the protein synthesis. We have 200 billion simulated proteins already by Google that we can use. That's an explosion in terms of productivity. But now we need to enter the systems biology. And then finally, we can build up models that we can use with personal data. But if we reach that, then we also need to change the whole legislation and how we approve drugs, because drugs are always usually working on 3,000 patients, etc. And if you're doing a personal drug, then the whole registration procedure is wrong. Very similar to medtech companies that we have right now. I mean, you're developing some AI algorithm in a hardware and you want to register that, and it takes, I don't know, 5 years. And during that time, the whole machine learning paradigm has changed. So we need to change also how we as a community are looking at the technology to be used by whole sets of people. So from my perspective, it's just the beginning. And I would think that we need, again, 4 next steps. Namely, we need to not only explode the number of simulations, but we need to have a meta kind of framework where we plug in the different levels of simulations, like you have a cell level, you have a gene level, you have an organ level, etc. And you need to have a kind of a meta structure where you say, okay, here is a simulation that I have, here is a simulation that I need, and I can use that in a cascaded measure. We don't have that right now, and I think, at least according to my research, there is a lot of white spots in the tooling landscape to get into in silico simulation on various levels. We need to find these white spots and fill them with venture capital money. And certainly, as always, in an AI paradigm, we need more data for the community, of course. I've been working a lot with healthcare insurers, for example. We have a lot of data. We are just not allowed to use it. And so that's another discussion that we had. Is it unterlassene Hilfeleistung if you're not using patient data to make the patient healthy again? So this is a paradigm that needs to shift. Same is true for aging. A lot of drugs cannot be tested in the classical paradigm of clinical tests, because clinical tests are only allowed for diseases that you have. So if aging is not a disease, I cannot even enter the process of registering a molecule against aging. So these are the 4 things that I would advise for today, and I'm actually 3 minutes faster than I thought.
Yes, thank you. That's fantastic. Do we have questions from the audience? And yes, I saw your hand first. No, there was a lady at the heater next to you, at the wall, yes.
Thank you. I have a very tough question. If we can overcome all the hurdles and get digital twins of ourselves, like profiled digital twins, and we would then measure how long we would live, wouldn't that change completely our social behavior? Because we would try to combat illnesses that are predicted. We would lose, or that would completely destroy and kill the joy in our lives to live it to the fullest extent, because we would fear that, oh, I have 2 or 3 years to go. So is there an answer, or are there already researches in this regard, how that would change?
I think there is 2 aspects to this. One is there value in the concept of death, so that you live your life differently because you know that it's going to be over? And will this philosophy change if you know, I can live as long as I want? I had the luck to have 2 parents that said to me, it's enough, I'm 87 now, and I want to go. I mean, one was Alzheimer's, but still, he was happy. And I think leaving this earth happily, that should be the point, no matter how we achieve that. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is social security systems. So if we choose, and the technology, yes, I know Jeff Bezos and so on, all of these guys will profit from this certainly faster than we do. But if the application is exploding, then we have a lot of problems like overpopulation, which certainly translate to something else. Instead of saying, okay, the Germans are 83 million and now they are 85, what will happen if everybody is doubling their age that they can achieve? So these are, I think, the two questions that we need to tackle. But before that, I think we should invest in this kind of technology.
Thank you. You first, and then Katharina. And over there.
I have two questions, if I may. You mentioned that glucose meter. This, I think, was Dexcom.
Yeah.
It's not available in Germany, isn't it? I think it's only in the US.
I actually don't know. I was able to order one.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Because I checked it last week and they said it's only for the US.
Yeah.
Okay. But the other question, I'm not a fan of the electronic patient file system in Germany. Okay. Because it's fairly
of the
unsafe.
Concept or of
the concept I'm fine with, but the implementation is crappy.
Yeah.
But that would make access to patient data for research and for development of new health products actually a lot easier. Is that true?
Yeah. As far as I understood, the last, Mr. Lauterbach, they were implementing the Gesundheitsdatennutzungsgesetz. Never write and invent a German word below 15 letters. And so there is a lot of these initiatives that are coming up so that we are not only establishing an electronic patient record, but actually really use it. For example, clinics are also now allowed to use the cloud in certain circumstances. So it's also about infrastructure, right? If I cannot access the data, then all of that machine learning stuff is not worthwhile.
Please.
Ramin, beautiful talk. I really enjoyed it so much. Thank you so much. I'm a huge fan of longevity, and most recently, I was so unlucky spending several weeks at the HNO hospital, and 80% of my co-patients were there caused by their lifestyle they have chosen. So drugs, nicotine, and very specific sports they've chosen to do.
Yeah.
How can, so this is human behavior based.
Yeah.
Are there any existing fruitful approaches combining the AI approaches regarding drug development and changing human behavior? Because we do know that the major reason why people die earlier today in the Western countries is caused by the lifestyles they have chosen, eating behavior, nicotine, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking at the top four, it's diabetes and heart diseases and brain, etc. And lots of them are correlated with just being overeating. Let's put it this way. And it's a really interesting part, because certainly we need to change that. And it's another philosophical question, like, are we as a society allowed to take that freedom from people who choose their lifestyle as they do? It's also an insurance system question, like, you are doing this kind of risky sports, why should I pay for that? You're taking nicotine, why should I pay for that? So this is another discussion that we need to have from my perspective. And so on the other hand, drug development is kind of mitigating some of the risks, like Ozempic and all of the GLP-1 antagonists. It's quite interesting. Now you have a drug that you can use because you're overweight. Yeah. So is that freeing you from doing sports, or shouldn't we use that because you should lose weight, etc.? It's another discussion that is coming up.
I have one question here in the first row. Oh, sorry, did you want to make a comment?
No, thank you so much. Thank you, Ramin.
Thank you. The microphone here in the first row, and we have a minute left. I also have one question left.
And what is your opinion about the freedom of the industry to produce this industry food, which also causes diabetes and so on? Any thoughts on that?
The only thing that I know is an interesting fact, because I was asking myself, why is ultra-processed food unhealthy, UPAFs? And the interesting thing is ultra-processed food is molecularly smaller than the stuff that you're eating when you're biting into a cucumber or something. And so how it travels through your intestines is different because the molecules are too small, and so the microbiome is distributed differently in your gut, so that some of your preprocessors, so to speak, don't see the molecules that you're eating. So we know why it's unhealthy, but certainly there is industry, there is capitalism. I mean, I don't want to sound too left, but people are producing things that other people are buying. So is it my responsibility to say, no, you shouldn't do that? I don't know. Certainly I'm looking at the traffic lights that we had here in Europe about fat and sugar and so on. And Europe was too weak to say, hey, industry, less sugar, we want the real numbers on the packages, etc. So we can do things, but obviously the politics, or I don't know, people who make the rules, might be influenced too much by some lobbyists.
And then you go to Singapore, and there they have less sugar in the soft drinks, and you wonder why.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite interesting. There is Fanta Lemon, and the level of sugar is varying across the different countries within Europe even.
Within Europe. I have two thoughts that lead to one question. So first is Bruce Lipton, one of the first cell biologists, said it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the fittest team. So you said 100 billion cells work together. Then I know from neuroscience, we barely know our brain. So both lead me to the question, how can I make a digital twin out of these organs, out of the whole body, if we don't know?
Yeah. I think it's you know, I was also puzzled when I saw that they replicated the brain, like, okay. But the reality is, of course, what do you want to reflect in a digital twin? So is it the uptake of some kind of molecules against Alzheimer's? Is it the amount of blood flow that is going in different directions and so on? So they are not simulating a person or how you are thinking, but they are using, for example, the structure of how the neuronal strands are organized in your brain, because this is repeated and it's also defined by genetics. And so this is the part that they are reflecting for pharmacology, etc. They are not copying a person.
But wouldn't that just isolate one part? And it could go this way because we looked into that, but it could go a totally different way because there are 90% of the brain that we didn't look at in that scenario.
Yes, I mean, looking at the human brain, I actually did my PhD in parts in Tübingen where they started to actually count different neuronal cells in a cell tissue, and it took them, I don't know, 20 years to get less than a cubic millimeter of the brain
20 years.
to be mapped. And the technology has changed, so you can stain things and so on. But the question is, if you know the structure of the brain, what kind of information in terms of application can you draw from that? If I know the streets of Germany, you still have to have a car and a goal where you want to go instead of just knowing where the streets are, right? And so I think it's an interactive thing. But the interesting thing is that most of the digital twins that I found were actually just once. So there is one group that is producing a heart. There is not 5 different labs competing and so on. So it's really early stage in the simulation.
Okay. Well, then we'll see where that leads with all the technology that we heard today, that it becomes more efficient and more accurate, and maybe then doesn't need another 10 years until we have precise digital twins. Thank you, Ramin.
Thanks.